Hello everyone, welcome to Diplomatic Briefing on December 3rd. Japanese media have reported that on this day, Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi made the latest remarks regarding Taiwan during a plenary session of the House of Councillors. According to Japanese media reports, Sanai Takaichi responded that Japan's basic stance on Taiwan is based on the China-Japan Joint Communique, and this has never changed. In the 1972 China-Japan Joint Communique, the Japanese government recognized the People's Republic of China as the sole legitimate government of China and fully understood and respected the People's Republic of China. The position that Taiwan is an inseparable part of the territory of the People's Republic of China has never changed. But did Sanai Takaichi actually say these words herself? Or was she simply responding to a related question from a Japanese lawmaker by saying that the position has never changed? Japanese media did not make this clear. On December 4th, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian clearly pointed out that, upon verification, the relevant reports are inaccurate. Prime Minister Kishida himself only mentioned Japan's basic position on the Taiwan issue, as stated in the 1972 China-Japan Joint Communique, and that this position has not changed, nothing more than that. Lin Jianhua stated that China's position is clear and urged the Japanese side to seriously reflect and immediately retract the erroneous remarks made by Sanai Takaichi. He emphasized that when it comes to historical records, the facts are crystal clear and the principles are written in black and white. In the face of China's repeated questioning over the past few days, as well as criticism from both within Japan and the international community, the Prime Minister still only responds perfunctorily by saying that Japan's position has not changed. China does not accept this. Lin Jian further questioned, since Sanai Takaichi claims that Japan's basic position on the Taiwan issue is as stated in the 1972 China-Japan Joint Communique, can she accurately and fully reiterate the contents of the 1972 China-Japan Joint Communique? Why is it that the Japanese side deliberately refuses to clearly state its existing commitments and legal obligations? What is the logic and intention behind this? Japan needs to give an explanation to China and the international community. To sum up the events of that day, during the session of the House of Councillors, a member raised a question saying that in the 1972 China-Japan Joint Communique, the Chinese side's position clearly stated that Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory. In response, Japan expressed full understanding and respect. Therefore, I am once again confirming this point. Regarding Japan's stance on Taiwan, the Japanese government's position remains consistent with the China-Japan Joint Communique, and if so, Sanai Takaichi responded, our government's position on Taiwan is consistent with the 1972 China-Japan Joint Communique and remains unchanged. Japanese media interpreted this as Takaichi stating Taiwan is China's inalienable territory. Sanai Takaichi didn't actually say this herself, she only stated the Japanese government's position hasn't changed, without specifying what exactly. Takaichi didn't even mention Japan adhering to the One China principle. Naturally, China wouldn't accept this, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson pressed her to clarify Japan's policy towards China. Sanai Takaichi's unwillingness to say it directly suggests an unspeakable secret, and if you look at French President Macron visiting China, how he expressed his China policy to President Xi, Macron said France and China maintain close high-level exchanges, mutual trust and respect. France values its China relationship, adheres to the One China policy, and is willing to deepen the comprehensive strategic partnership with China. Meanwhile, when Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with French Foreign Minister Barrett in Beijing, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website quoted that during the meeting, Wang Yi explained the nature and serious harm of erroneous remarks by current Japanese leaders regarding Taiwan, briefly outlined China's principled position, and stated that since both China and France are victors of World War II, they should jointly safeguard the hard-won achievements of the war. He emphasized that Japan must not be allowed to stir up trouble over the Taiwan issue and repeat historical mistakes. He expressed hope and belief that the French side will continue to understand China's legitimate position. In response, Barrett said that President Macron attaches great importance to relations with China, especially the special and sincere friendship with President Xi Jinping. In today's world, crises are everywhere and are spreading. As permanent members of the UN Security Council, France and China have the responsibility to jointly safeguard world peace in a constructive manner. France firmly adheres to the One China policy and looks forward to further enhancing friendship and cooperation between the two peoples through President Macron's visit this time. From the president to the foreign minister, France has stated that it adheres to the One China policy. Of course, France, like the US and other Western countries, still claims it will maintain exchanges with Taiwan, but it won't say things like, "Our position hasn't changed," or anything like that. What is certain is that they are committed to the One China policy. In contrast, the current Japanese leaders aren't even willing to mention the One China policy, so it's no wonder that China won't accept that. Macron embarked on his fourth visit to China as French president. On December 4th, President Xi hosted a welcoming ceremony and held talks. They reached consensus on 4 areas: enhancing political mutual trust, expanding practical cooperation, promoting people-to-people exchanges, and advancing reforms to improve global governance. First, to enhance political mutual trust, no matter how the external environment changes, both sides consistently demonstrate independence and strategic vision of major powers, especially on issues involving each other's core interests and major key matters. Business support is key. The second point is to expand practical cooperation, consolidating in traditional fields like aviation, aerospace, and nuclear energy, expanding cooperation in emerging areas, the green economy, digital economy, biomedicine, and artificial intelligence. The goal is to promote balanced bilateral economic and trade relations development, increase investment, and provide a fair, transparent, non-discriminatory, predictable business environment for companies of both countries. The third point is to promote people-to-people exchanges, building on the success of the Year of Culture and Tourism. This includes cooperation in culture, education, science and technology, and local partnerships, launch a new round of giant panda conservation collaboration, promote reform global governance, strengthen strategic communication, safeguard the UN-centered international system and international law-based order, promoting a more just and reasonable global governance. So why are these visits to China happening so frequently? What kind of signals does this trip send? Many foreign media outlets have pointed out that France is trying to achieve a rebalancing of economic and trade relations with China to ease the trade deficit between the two countries. Some French scholars have said that times have changed. China now possesses particularly advanced technology, and Europeans are eager for Chinese companies to transfer technology back to Europe. Feng Songheng, president of the China-Europe Society, told the Mainland Observer Network that in the past, German Chancellor Merkel often visited provincial capital cities during her trips to China, and Macron has arranged his visit in a similar way. The purpose is to find more opportunities for cooperation. He believes that Macron's visit has sparked a reaction in Europe and at the same time sends a signal that strengthening dialogue and cooperation is extremely necessary. He explained that European countries have different stances to China. Some are supportive, while there are also negative groups. France, for example, is often indecisive in its position to China. However, Macron's visit to China will impact Europe and the Group of Seven. Professor Huang Suo from Beijing Foreign Studies University stated Macron's visit to China has symbolic significance, as major Western leaders, including the US, are expected to visit soon. As the first of a series of intensive visits to China, Macron's trip not only represents France but is also intended to represent the Western world in his capacity as next year's Group of Seven rotating chair, engaging in strategic dialogue with China, which will be the Asia-Pacific rotating chair next year. He said that Western leaders are scrambling to visit China, which shows that China may take a more proactive role in upcoming diplomatic games. From this perspective, he personally believes that these leaders will not make negative statements regarding the Taiwan issue. Chenchenkova, director of the China Studies Center at Riga Stradins University in Latvia, told Nikkei Asia that Macron will proceed step by step according to the agenda. Given the backdrop of declining domestic support for Macron's government, promoting France's commercial interest in China has become the central focus of his visit. Glebin, an economist at the Center for Prospective Studies and International Information at the French Research Center, pointed out in an interview with EU Daily that China's manufacturing industry is rapidly shifting toward the high-end market and in some cases has even surpassed its European counterparts, putting the survival of European industry at serious risk. Gaudemont, Asia advisor at the French Institute for International Relations, is closely monitoring developments in China's economic policy. Turning to China in October this year, they signaled that their next 5-year plan will focus on building an export-oriented economy. He warned that China's current industrial output already accounts for 35% of the world's total, and in the coming years, this proportion could reach 50%. France could potentially be reduced to an agricultural and tourism colony. Gaudemont recognizes that China possesses particularly advanced technology. He called on European leaders to strive for technology transfer from China to Europe. He pointed out that since the 1990s, when Europe invested in China, it was accompanied by a large amount of technology transfer. Now Europeans hope to see a reverse flow of technology transfer. Summing up these analyses, there are a few observations. First, the European faction represented by Macron wants to become a third force between China and the US. Unfortunately, EU leaders do not dare to say no to the US, causing Europe to lose its position as a major stakeholder in global strategic balance. This is the first point. Second, there has been a historic reversal in the global economic landscape. European academics have already realized that shifting from exporting technology to China to now desiring technology imports from China marks a significant transformation. Third, this demonstrates that China's weight on the global economic, technological, and diplomatic chessboard is increasing, and European countries are making decisions based on their practical interests. They all need to recalibrate the way they interact with China.